joint president of the club, Father Jimmy Murray. Father Jimmy, thanks very much for agreeing to sit down with us this evening. I suppose if we could start off maybe by asking you, what's your earliest memories of GA in Rosemount?
Well, my earliest memories, things that influenced me were there was family and faith and football and the school. Family, there were close-knit families, there were farmers, a lot of them, there were tradespeople, and of course there were the housewives, which were very much part of family life at that time. Then there was faith. The church was, everybody went to Mass on a Sunday at that time. They came in hearse and trap and hearse and cart and on bicycles and walking across the fields. You see them coming on the old Mass plats. Very few cars, maybe 2 or 3. And outside there would be a group of men always come early to talk about football. They'd be either in the shed or at the wall. I always thought the 5-minute bell which rang was to get them in, but it was for everybody, I suppose. But we regarded them as the football supporters who had to discuss the game. And then we have the football itself. Well, that started in the football club in 1924, and it was a marvellous success in a sense that it gave the community a sense of unity, and that was important. And everybody, is sort of, I think, felt, young or old, that they belonged. And support for them, of course, the supporters got an identity as well. It was important to have a flag you could follow, and the black and amber became a sort of part of the war cry of the community, and it meant a lot to everybody, young and old. And then you had the school. The school was, I suppose, part of our formation was there. We had our football pitch there, and I can still remember it was a big leather football. That's my memory of it. Heavy, very difficult to pump it or to lace it. And we used to go up on the bikes to Sonny Carney, and Lord have mercy on Sonny. He had infinite patience. He'd fix that for a day after day, and then we'd play. And I remember at that time a lot came to school in the summertime in their bare feet, and they played football in their bare feet. It was amazing, girls and boys. Now the school was a sort of often, I suppose, an important point of that was confirmation, and for a lot of lads it was the end of school. It was graduation, because there was no secondary school for boys around in Moat at that time. And I remember that my memory of it was that some of them left quite early as a result. Others stayed on a long time because there was nowhere else to go. But I think we had good memories of school. And then you had the football followers. You had people who cycled across Park to matches, cycled to Thurles, to the hurling final. Bill Kennedy comes to mind. Bill was a marvellous character. My first memory of being at a football match, Bill was playing as a forward, and he was rather unorthodox. He never tugged out except to put on the jersey. And I don't know how good he was, but he was very interested in football. When Bill was very sick at the end, I used to go see him, and I talked to him about it. I said, Bill, do you remember you cycled to Rome? Oh, begat I did, he said. And I missed the whole league, he says, about cycling to Rome. 1950, he said, the whole year. How long did that take you? I said, well, I went when I had the turf cut and I was back from making the hay. I think he said 16 days going and 17 days coming back. The wind was on my face coming back. Imagine travelling France, Italy, up to England. And I said, where did you stay? Oh, the back of the ditch, he said. And how do you manage for language? I said, I had only 2 words, he says. Okay. Well, God bless him, he must have come back a wreck after all that, cycling. And a bike that was sort of like a gate with wheels on it, Yeah. And then, of course, he said to me, I was back in time for the Munster final, and he'd have cycled down to that. Cycling to Mullingar to a match was no bother at all. Then you had individuals, of course, like Bruno and Tom Byrne. And, at matches, they used to hunt in packs up and down the sideline. You couldn't keep them quiet. They got so involved. In fact, I think it took more out of them than the players, But we remember the final, and Tom was at it, Lord Mercy and a man, and someone said to Tom, we were going to the bar. Tom, what about the cows? Oh, says Tom, when I put up the flag in the shed, they know it'll be all right, he says Tom. And he says, won't it be all right? Yeah.
There was many characters within the club and played on the team and that.
It's when you were young, every footballer was a hero, you know. They were special people. And then of course football was talked a lot about. We had the radio, and on the radio, you see, when you had Michal O'Hare on a match, you learned the name of every player, every county player, hurler of football. You learned a lot, came out clear. Not many initially had radios, because electricity, I remember when electricity wasn't here, and they had a wet and dry battery to run the yoke. They were very careful when they used it then. It was just for news, for weather forecast. Farmers had it for the Dublin Cattle Market Report, and for football and hurling. And you went to people's houses to hear them put the football and hurling. And then, of course, when electricity came, it was an extraordinary achievement in the locality. People were afraid of it. A lot of people were afraid of it as a unit, but they were also afraid of the cost of it. It could cost a lot. And, of course, people rambling with rumours didn't help the faith of people in the electricity at all. I remember an inspector came to the school and he talked about it coming, and he gave us an essay, ESP in the country. Sure, nobody knew what he was talking about. You can imagine the stuff he got back. But but it revolutionised life. People talked the cost of a single bulb, and if you had a socket and things like that. There was no television that time, so it was a great talking point. And of course, football was a great talking point. And I remember poor old Jack Cormack, Jack's only interest in life was football. And he'd get a few jars before a match, he'd come home. The ashes of the fireplace would go halfway out the kitchen, and he'd lay out the team that he thought should be playing on that. And if you went in, he'd ask your advice about it. Yeah. And of course, he went into Tom's before a match, Tom Byrne, and I often did. Well, he'd get so worked up about the report on the paper and all about it, before it and after it, you know. Yeah.
He played the game over and over again.
Oh, did he? What? And that'd be played at the parish down outside Mass on Sundays. It'd be a big chat, and or the match was coming up. And then I remember as a kid, you'd look at the footballers, and you'd say, "God, wouldn't it be great to be like them?" And then there was, remember, the county did well at one stage. Don't ask me the details, but Sonny Carney, Johnny Ward, there was a number of people like that on it. And Desi Lynham, and sure, we thought they were gods, you know. Yeah.
It sounds like football meant an awful lot to the people in Rosemount.
It unified the community. It kept everyone together, and it gave us a sense of us and them. You know, we had the most were them and other teams like that, but we were very proud of who we were. You know, and everywhere you went, you know, you didn't have to give your name. You said you were from Rosemount, and that was enough.
And tell me, you being a member of the Carmelite Order and having such a strong presence in Moat, and then having such an affinity to Rosemount, how did that go down over the years?
I remember one game in Ballymore we were playing, and Father Morrissey were playing for Rosemount, and Lord Mercy and Andy Gillivan, the uncle of the auntie who died, and Gard McKenna, they gave out to us from the sideline that we should be playing where we were earning our bread and butter. Yeah. And I remember coming back from that match. There were very few cars that time, and we're coming back from Pat Smith, and we came down the Suntown Road. What brought us that way, I don't know, but yeah, the idea was then we had someone to drop off, and we were going to the town to get a drink. And Tom Byrne said when we came to Suntown Crossing, no, he said, think about that again. Did you hear what they said about us in Ballymore? We go left to Streamstone. That's what we did. It was that serious, you know. Yeah.
And tell me, like, there's obviously so many changes to society and life over the years, but football was probably a consistent, or did you see much change in it over the years?
Well, I tell you, there was great change in the facilities for footballers, you know, for young and old, and to see the girls playing football, it increased the attractiveness of community life and football life. It's great when you think of here. I remember there was nowhere to change, no. And you had a big bank here at the back. The old Esker was there, and they tried to cut stages in that where you could sit down and watch a match. But that was the only comfort there was in it now. And then over the years, the community got together and built what you have here, which is marvellous, and built the extra pitch, and it makes it so attractive for young people and so pleasant to come to watch a game in it. Oh yeah, but people were great that time. There was nothing else maybe for them, but they walked and talked football. They cycled. I remember one time going in the horse and cart to Mullingar to a match. Jack Cormac. Jack was mad. He said, "We'll have to go to that match." It was a league final. And we went around by Boher. There was no road tar there because we were afraid the horse would slip. But when they got a few jars that night, we came home the main road. The horse knocked sparks out of it. Yeah. And
you had some success yourself playing on the football field.
Now it is quite limited now, so it was, and certainly with nothing to boast about. But we remember Peter Moore training us for the junior final, and the under-21s won it. The champ, that was 69, and Peter to be out here, he was great with us. He had great patience altogether with us, But I remember the last night when we were training, and I said he was harder on that night than any other night. He felt we weren't performing at all, and I remember going into board with Pat Smith and Bruno, and I said to Bruno going in, "God, wouldn't it be great to be a good footballer?" I said, "Bro, we're even a bad one on a good team."
Well, he always had an answer.
He always had an answer, yeah.
Yeah, and we over the years, obviously there was many great people done a lot of work in the club, and I suppose the people who set the club up and worked hard up over the years, what would you think they would think now if they were to come back and see the facilities?
They'd be very proud of it, and they should be very proud of themselves, because they were the ones who initiated it. They wouldn't necessarily be players at all. They have nothing personal to get out of it except what they give to the community, and they gave a lot to the community, And then, of course, the community responded to that, The young people played and followed the example of the older folk, And those people in their own way became heroes, And they deserve to be remembered, yeah.
And then I suppose the Carmelite College then had a lot of success football wise, and Rosemount had a big representation in that.
A lot from it, and it was two-way. Carmelite got a lot from the lads here in Rosemount, and again playing at that level in the college brought on those lads too, and you had some great footballers there. Great success, and again the whole local club followed the school when it was doing well. And we had great times.
Couple of All Irelands.
Oh yeah.
Late evenings.
And Leinsters and late evenings, and celebrations and things like that.
And I think earlier years then there was very little underage, but the underage then started in.
It started big time now, and it's great the way it's been brought on here, and the facilities and the people that train them every evening and every night, and they're great, Local community again, carrying on the tradition of those who started it. Great, and improving it.
And I'm sure in your travels you've come across many people that maybe played for or against Rosemount.
Oh yeah,
we've a good diaspora even for a small community.
If you're anywhere at a wedding or something and you mention you're from Rosemount, you raise hackles sometimes, but people will have good memories or great memories of it, and different if you just gave your name, but say where you're from. That's it. Yeah, it gives you an identity.
Yeah, for sure. And I suppose early on in the life of the club, there was quite a lot of success, and in the 30s and I think in the 50s.
The 50s there was, yeah.
And then I suppose there was a big gap until 89. What's your memories of them winning the championship in 89?
Gosh, there was so much talk about that beforehand. All the hopes we had. It was against Athlone was the final, and we had beaten Moat in the semi-final. Yeah, and the excitement of that now beating Moat, because we weren't expecting to do it, and we didn't as if we would do it. looked like at the game. And I remember sitting with a crowd of mates, you know, and oh God, they were doing well, you know. And Maggie Higgins was saying to me, well now, she said, how do you feel now? Maggie, I'm on a diet of humble pie. Saying that, I said to her, you know. And then Jockey got 2 goals. And sure, we couldn't believe it now, you know. I didn't like to be too hard on the opposition, but we did enjoy it and rub it in, you know. And then of course the final then again at Lone there was
Athlone were a really strong team.
No, they were a good team. They were a great team. They were, and like those writing it up, you know, pay tribute to the great quality of fellas we had, but didn't think we could beat Athlone, and they did. That was marvellous. That was unbelievable. Now the euphoria after that, you know, and I can still see Tom on the sideline and Bruno and all the characters, you know. Oh yeah. Tom Gay, you know, listening to him, you regard as a quiet family man. Well, he lost the head altogether, Tom did. Yeah, and he went to the pub and he brought the kids, and they filled the cup with whiskey, and the kids got a great bit of it on, and Tom couldn't understand the next morning when they couldn't put their legs underneath them, getting on the club, you know.
Yeah, and I suppose there was no, as you mentioned earlier on, religion and school and the GAA, they were the centre of the community.
Oh, were you?
There was no pub here for a long time, we had to
no.
venture elsewhere.
Oh no. Everything centred around here. And then you see there was no moat, you just went to moat occasionally, you know. There wasn't much money either, I suppose, so there was no need to go and separate airport or something like that. But otherwise, no. And it created its own community and its own drama and its own. You know, rambling was a big thing then. Then the television, of course. Yeah, it's added a lot to the life of it, and yet it changed the life of people too. You know.
And like I know, I've heard of, say, there was a hall down beside the church, and then obviously the community hall here was built on the GA grounds, and I suppose that just reinforced the community and this being a focal point.
It was strange, you know, the GA, the effect it had. You had Irish dancing and you had drama. You had the hall down there was the old school, and it was a pity it was not down. It was beautiful brickwork, a tribute to the skill of the craftsmen here in the area. Magnificent stuff it was, and there was plays there and dancing there and everything was there. Now I know it was too small and wouldn't fit into the size of a community we have now and would have to be adjusted, but it was a magnificent building, you know. Yeah.
And maybe the fact that, say, this facility here was built, we had quite a lot of success then in score. You know, I think we won an All-Ireland with music.
And Tommy Duffy, Lord Mercy, he had all the dancing and all that. There was a lot of changes, positive changes. A lot of things occurred, you know. Community had a lot of potential when it had that to work on, you know. It created outlets for drama and everything. It's been a great spot. Sure. Wouldn't want to go anywhere else.
And then going back to the football, I suppose the country seen many different bouts of emigration, and that did that have much of an effect in the club?
I was thinking the other night, you know, you had a lot of immigration from both and everything. We didn't have a lot of immigration from here. You had some, all right, but not a lot, you know, because there was a lot of crafts work going on, building and all that, and there was a tradition of that here, and lads stayed here on it now. Girls probably emigrated all right. They did to America and England, but fellas didn't. The girls went into nursing and things like that. But there wasn't mass emigration.
Yeah. And I suppose with the trades that were in the community, I've often seen of a mehel where everyone puts the shoulder to the wheel, and Joe Kane was telling the story there the other day about, I think it was getting rid of the esker, and there was a great work done when we acquired the pitch here. Do you remember that when we moved to the pitch up to here?
I do. In fact, there was an enormous amount of voluntary work done, a lot of work done. Then, you know, the esker, Jerry Sheehan would cry at the loss of it, But the material was used creatively to develop the whole site here, you know, and we were lucky to have it. Because I remember there was a sand pit down there at the pump. Council worked away there till they took a lot of that out. But it was that big. It was a big very big. Went over across at the back of the school there and all that there, yeah.
And I suppose, say, football-wise in the school, then obviously you mentioned it earlier on. Then it's a big deal now, and you know, was it as big a deal back then, or?
It wasn't really. There was nobody training us as that. But I mean, when you look back on it, it was a great facility. That pitch. Not many schools had that space. Yeah. You know, it was a great space. No, it was good to have it, and probably brought on a lot of the footballers, the great footballers that came on later on.
Yeah, like we've had some success in Coming Up School, and nearly any Coming Up School team that done well then ended up doing well at adult level.
Yeah, and again, of course, you had a great school community and sense of staff there who looked after the young people. The whole ethos of the school changed, and you know, and sport became very important, and it was, and it lifted the level of life there too, you know.
And then I suppose in recent years we had some success winning the junior in 07 and intermediate in 2016. It was good to get back to senior level, for albeit only for a few years. But
we nearly to begin again. We have a lot of work to do, but the lads are there, and the trainers are there, and the support is there, and we'll be back again.
Someone said about was it Martin Byrne, I think. He said at the Black and Amber story that the candle may flicker and it may dim down and light up again, but it's never allowed to be die out.
No, it won't never die out. No, there's a life in the old dog stick.